The church bells echoed across the sun-drenched garden in downtown Chicago as Adrian stood at the altar, his crisp black tuxedo feeling suddenly too tight against his chest. Lucas burst through the white folding chairs, his tailored navy suit rumpled from the sprint, eyes locked on the man he had loved in silence for 9 years, and called out in a voice that cracked the perfect afternoon, "Adrian, don't say those vows. Come with me instead. I can't watch you throw away what we are anymore." Gasps rippled through the 200 guests, Sarah's bouquet trembling in her hands, but Adrian's world narrowed to the face he had memorized in stolen moments since their sophomore year at Northwestern. The minister froze mid-sentence. Adrian's conservative parents, seated in the front row with their rigid smiles, turned white. In that single heartbeat, the careful walls Adrian had built to protect his family name, his career as a rising architect, and the life he thought he was supposed to want crumbled like sand under Lake Michigan waves. Lucas stood there, ring box open in his palm, not a diamond for marriage but the simple silver band they had once shared in a rainy dorm room and then hidden away. Adrian felt his knees buckle. He had spent 9 years convincing himself the night they first kissed was just college confusion, a secret they could bury under friendship and late-night beers. But Lucas had never buried it. He had carried it like a quiet fire, watching Adrian date women, land the big projects, and finally agree to marry Sarah because his father's company demanded the right image. Now the fire was out in the open, scorching everything. Adrian's best man, Jake, stepped forward to pull Lucas back, but Lucas didn't move. His voice dropped to the intimate tone only Adrian had ever heard. 9 years, Adrian. 9 years of pretending I was fine with being your shadow. I'm not fine anymore. The words landed like stones in still water. Sarah turned to Adrian, tears already spilling, and whispered, "Is this real?" Adrian couldn't answer. His throat had closed. The garden smelled of roses and fresh-cut grass, the same scent that had filled their first secret weekend in a cabin up north when they were 21 and terrified of what they felt. Back then Lucas had said, "We don't have to label it." Adrian had agreed because labeling it meant losing his parents' approval, losing the future they had planned since he was a boy. Now that future stood in a white dress waiting for an answer he no longer knew how to give. Guests murmured. Phones came out. Adrian felt the weight of every expectation he had carried since childhood pressing on his ribs. His mother's hand flew to her mouth. His father's jaw tightened the way it did before board meetings. Adrian looked at Lucas and saw not the reckless friend from college but the man who had quietly been his anchor through every late-night panic attack, every promotion celebration, every family holiday where Adrian had smiled while feeling hollow. The proposal wasn't just words. It was 9 years of swallowed truth demanding to be seen. Adrian took one step toward Lucas, then stopped. Sarah's sob broke the moment. He turned back to her, guilt flooding him so fast he tasted metal. I need air," he managed, voice hoarse. He pushed past the minister and walked, then ran, down the aisle between the shocked faces. Lucas followed without hesitation. They reached the edge of the garden where the city skyline glittered beyond the trees. Adrian spun around, chest heaving. "What the hell, Lucas? Today? In front of everyone." Lucas's eyes never wavered. "Every other day you found a reason to wait. I ran out of tomorrows." The wind caught Lucas's hair, the same dark curls Adrian had once tangled his fingers in during a thunderstorm when they promised nothing would change. But everything had changed the moment Lucas decided silence was no longer love. Adrian pressed his palms to his face, feeling the cool metal of the wedding band Sarah had slipped on his finger during rehearsal. He wanted to scream. He wanted to run back and finish the ceremony because that was the safe path. Yet the pull toward Lucas was stronger than it had ever been, as if the confession had unlocked something he had chained down for nearly a decade. Sirens wailed faintly from Michigan Avenue, reminding him the world kept moving even when his stopped. His phone buzzed relentlessly in his pocket. Sarah, his mother, Jake. He silenced it. Lucas waited, ring box still open, the silver band catching the sunlight like a question mark. Adrian reached out, not to take the ring but to touch Lucas's wrist, feeling the steady pulse that had always grounded him. "I don't know what to do," he whispered, the first honest sentence he had spoken in years. Lucas's voice softened. "Then let's figure it out together. No more hiding." The garden behind them erupted in voices, but here at the edge, only the two of them existed. Adrian realized in that instant that the real proposal wasn't about marriage. It was about finally choosing himself. The thought terrified him more than any scandal ever could. He dropped his hand and stared at the city he had built his life around, wondering if there was room left for the man he had been pretending not to be. They walked without direction, leaving the garden and the chaos behind, crossing into Grant Park where joggers and tourists moved in oblivious bliss. Adrian's tuxedo jacket hung open, tie loosened, the formal perfection now ridiculous against the ordinary afternoon. Lucas kept pace beside him, silent now that the words had been spoken, giving Adrian the space he had always needed yet never taken. The lake breeze carried the smell of hot dogs from a vendor cart, so normal it felt mocking. Adrian's mind raced through every moment he had pushed Lucas away. The night after graduation when Lucas had whispered, "Stay with me," and Adrian had laughed it off as drunk talk. The Christmas 3 years ago when Lucas drove through a blizzard to bring him soup because Adrian was alone in his apartment fighting a fever and couldn't face his family's questions about why he was still single. Every quiet support Lucas had given without asking for credit. "You planned this?" Adrian finally asked, voice raw. Lucas shook his head. "I planned to stay quiet forever. Then I saw you at the rehearsal dinner last night, smiling at Sarah like you were reading from a script, and something inside me broke. I couldn't let you sign the rest of your life away without knowing you had a choice." Adrian stopped under the shade of an oak tree, the same kind they had sat beneath during college picnics when their knees would brush and neither would pull away. "My dad will disown me. The firm is his. Sarah's father is our biggest client. This isn't just about us, Lucas. It's about everything I was raised to be." Lucas's expression softened with the patience Adrian had come to rely on. "I know. I've watched you carry that weight for 9 years. But carrying it is killing you. I see it every time you think no one's looking." A jogger passed, earbuds in, unaware that two men were unraveling a decade in public. Adrian sank onto a bench, head in hands. Memories flooded uninvited. The first time in their shared dorm when Lucas had leaned in during a movie and their lips met, tentative and electric. Adrian had pulled back, heart hammering, and said, "We can't." "My family," Lucas had nodded, eyes sad, and they had never spoken of it again. Yet the connection never faded. Late-night study sessions turned into lingering hugs. Road trips became private confessions about dreams and fears. They built a secret language of glances and inside jokes that Sarah would never understand. Adrian looked up at Lucas now, seeing the same gentle strength that had held him together through his mother's cancer scare and his first big career failure. "I love her," he said quietly, testing the words. "In a way. She's kind. She fits the picture." Lucas didn't flinch. "I know you do. But loving her doesn't erase what we are." It never did. The honesty stung because it was true. Adrian had spent years convincing himself the pull toward Lucas was nostalgia, not destiny. Now the confession had stripped the lie bare. His phone vibrated again, his mother this time. He answered on instinct. "Mom, Adrian, Michael, you get back here right now and fix this. Your father is livid. Sarah is devastated." What on earth possessed Lucas to do something so selfish? The word selfish landed like a slap. Adrian glanced at Lucas, who could hear every word. "It wasn't selfish, Mom. It was honest." The line went quiet, then his father's voice boomed through the speaker. "Honest? You're throwing away your future for some college fling? We raised you better. Come home. We'll handle the damage control. Adrian ended the call, chest tight. Lucas placed a hand on his shoulder, warm and steady. You don't have to choose today, but you do have to choose eventually. They walked again, past the Buckingham fountain, water sparkling in the sun like the life Adrian thought he wanted. He thought about the apartment he shared with Sarah, the wedding registry still open online, the honeymoon tickets to Maui. All of it felt like someone else's dream now. Lucas's presence beside him felt like coming home after a long exile. As evening approached, they found a quiet bench near the lake. Adrian finally asked the question he had avoided for years. Why me? Why wait? Lucas smiled sadly. Because from the moment you laughed at my terrible coffee in the dorm kitchen, I knew you were the one person who saw me. Not the athlete, not the scholarship kid, just me. And I saw you, the real you, the one who draws buildings at 3 a.m. and worries about his little sister's future. I couldn't walk away from that. Tears stung Adrian's eyes for the first time since the garden. The sun dipped lower, painting the skyline gold. For the first time in 9 years, Adrian didn't pull away when Lucas's fingers brushed his. He let them stay, a small bridge across the chasm he had created. The decision still loomed, but in that moment the weight felt shared instead of crushing. They sat in silence as the city lights began to flicker on. Two men at the edge of everything they had known, unsure of the path ahead but no longer pretending the road they were on was the right one. The next morning found them in Lucas's small apartment in Wicker Park, the one Adrian had visited countless times under the guise of guy time. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, highlighting the sketches Lucas had drawn of buildings Adrian designed. Private keepsakes of a life lived in parallel. Adrian woke on the couch, still in his tuxedo pants and dress shirt, head throbbing from lack of sleep and the weight of unanswered calls. Lucas handed him coffee, black the way he liked, and sat across from him without pressure. Sarah came by last night after you crashed, Lucas said gently. She wanted to talk to you, but I told her you needed space. She left this. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside was Sarah's neat handwriting. I deserve the truth. Call me when you're ready. Adrian's stomach twisted. He had hurt the woman who had stood by him through late work nights and family dinners where his parents grilled her about grandchildren. Guilt mixed with something lighter, relief that the pretending could end. Lucas watched him read, then spoke. Remember sophomore year? That rainy weekend we drove to Door County. Adrian nodded, the memory vivid. They had rented a tiny cabin because the dorms were too risky. No touching beyond what could be explained as friendship, but the air had crackled. They talked until dawn about dreams. Adrian wanting to build sustainable housing, Lucas hoping to open a community arts center. When lightning flashed, Lucas had reached for Adrian's hand and neither let go. I told myself it was just comfort, Adrian admitted now. But it was more. I was scared. Lucas's smile was soft. We both were. Your dad called that weekend, remember? Asked why you weren't home for your cousin's engagement party. You hung up and looked at me like the world was ending. They spent the morning trading stories like that, piecing together the hidden timeline of their love. The secret trips to Milwaukee where they held hands in dark movie theaters. The coded texts during family vacations. The nights Adrian would drive to Lucas's place after fights with his father and fall asleep on the couch, waking to Lucas's quiet presence making breakfast. Each memory chipped away at the wall Adrian had built. By afternoon, Adrian's phone showed 30 missed calls. His sister texted privately, Dad's talking about cutting you off. Mom's crying. What's really going on? Adrian stared at the screen, then showed it to Lucas. They think I'm throwing everything away for a phase. Lucas didn't argue. Instead, he pulled out an old photo from his phone. The two of them at graduation, arms around each other, grinning like the future was theirs. You're not throwing it away. You're choosing what actually belongs to you. The words settled deep. Adrian stood and paced the small living room, the city noise filtering through the open window. He thought about his mother's Sunday roasts where she always saved the corner piece for him, his father's pride when he landed his first major project. Love had always come with conditions. Lucas's never had. That difference felt revolutionary. As evening fell, Adrian made the call he had dreaded. Sarah answered on the first ring. "Adrian." Her voice was steady but tired. "I'm sorry," he said, the words inadequate. "I never meant to hurt you. Lucas and I, it's not new. I should have told you years ago." Silence stretched. Then Sarah sighed. "I saw the way he looked at you yesterday. I think part of me always knew something was missing. I just hoped it was enough." They talked for nearly an hour, tears on both sides, but no anger. When he hung up, Adrian felt lighter, as if a chain had snapped. Lucas waited in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner like any ordinary night. Adrian joined him, shoulder brushing shoulder, and for the first time allowed himself to lean into the contact without guilt. "I don't know what comes next," he admitted. Lucas handed him a knife. "We cook. Then we sleep. Tomorrow we figure out the rest." That night they shared the bed for the first time without pretense. Backs touching, breathing in sync. Adrian lay awake listening to the distant L train, realizing the secret that had once felt like protection now felt like a cage he had locked himself inside. Lucas's confession had handed him the key. He didn't know if he was brave enough to turn it yet, but the possibility no longer terrified him. It felt like dawn after a very long night. The days blurred into a tense rhythm of avoidance and confrontation. Adrian's father showed up at the apartment unannounced, tie loosened, face flushed with anger and disappointment. "This is not how I raised you," he said the moment Lucas opened the door. Adrian stepped between them, voice calm but firm. "Dad, this isn't about you." The argument spilled onto the sidewalk, neighbors peering from windows. His father listed every sacrifice, the private schools, the college fund, the introductions to the right people. Each point landed like a stone. Lucas stood silently beside Adrian, a quiet pillar. When his father finally drove away, Adrian sank onto the curb, head in hands. "He's never going to accept this." Lucas sat next to him. "Maybe not. But you're not living for him anymore." Friends weighed in next. Jake called from the office, voice awkward. "Man, the partners are talking." Sarah's dad pulled the account. "You need to fix this." Adrian met Jake at a bar they used to frequent, the same place where he had once introduced Lucas as just a buddy. Over beers, Jake asked the hard question. "Was any of it real with Sarah?" Adrian stared into his glass. "Parts of it. But the realest part of me was always somewhere else." Jake didn't understand, but he didn't walk away either. That small loyalty gave Adrian hope. Meanwhile, Lucas faced his own fallout. His sister texted worried messages about family gatherings where questions about Adrian's phase dominated conversation. Lucas's mother, more open-minded than Adrian's parents, invited them both to dinner. The table felt strange but honest. She hugged Lucas extra tight and told Adrian, "I always wondered why my son never brought anyone home. Now I know." The acceptance in one home made the rejection in the other sting sharper. Adrian spent nights staring at his laptop, job offers drying up as word spread. He sketched buildings late into the night, but the lines felt empty. Lucas would sit nearby reading, offering quiet company without demanding answers. One evening Adrian broke. "What if I lose everything? The career, the family, the respect?" Lucas closed his book. "You lose the version of you that was never real. The one you get to keep is worth more." The words echoed through Adrian's mind as he walked the city alone the next day, past the skyscrapers he had helped design. He realized the identity he had clung to was built on fear. Lucas's proposal had forced him to see the man beneath the suit, the one who loved deeply, quietly, and without apology. Misunderstandings arose too. Sarah's best friend posted a vague social media rant about betrayal, tagging mutual friends. Adrian's sister called crying, torn between loyalty to their parents and love for her brother. Each conversation chipped away at old defenses. Lucas never pushed, but his steady presence became the anchor Adrian needed. They drove to the lake one weekend, the same route they had taken years ago. Sitting on the sand, Adrian finally voiced the fear he had buried longest. "I'm scared I don't know how to be this person in public." Lucas took his hand openly the first time in daylight. "Then we learned together. One day at a time." The sun warmed their skin as gulls cried overhead. Adrian felt the shift inside him, a slow thawing. The proposal that had shattered the wedding had also cracked open the door to a life he had only dreamed about in secret. He still didn't have all the answers, but for the first time the questions didn't feel like betrayal. They felt like freedom. Months passed in a blur of hard conversations and small victories. Adrian moved his things out of the shared apartment with Sarah, each box a step toward honesty. He rented a modest place near Lucas's, close enough for late-night talks but separate enough to breathe. His father's silence hurt more than shouting. The family business email arrived curtly. "Your position is on hold until further notice." Adrian stared at the screen for hours, then closed the laptop and went for a run along the lake path, feet pounding out the frustration. Lucas met him at the end with water and no judgment. "You're building something better," he said simply. Therapy became part of the routine. Adrian sat in a quiet office near the loop, unpacking years of conditioning about what a man should be. The counselor listened as he described the pressure to marry, produce heirs, uphold the family name. "You're allowed to rewrite the script," she told him. Lucas attended a session too, sharing how the secrecy had eroded his self-worth. Together they learned new ways to communicate without fear. Friends slowly came around. Jake showed up one Saturday with pizza and a six-pack. "I don't get it all," he admitted, "but you're still my friend. That's what matters." The words meant more than Adrian expected. Family cracks began to mend in unexpected places. His sister visited unannounced, hugging him fiercely. "Mom cries at night, but she's asking questions. Dad's stubborn, but he loves you." Small signs of hope. Lucas's community arts center dream gained traction with a grant Adrian helped him write. Watching Lucas light up while planning programs for queer youth reminded Adrian why he had fallen in love in the first place. The man who had proposed on the wedding day wasn't reckless. He was courageous. Adrian found work at a smaller firm focused on sustainable design, a passion he had sidelined for years. The pay was less, the prestige lower, but the satisfaction felt real. Evenings were spent sketching together at the kitchen table, shoulders touching, laughter easy. Yet doubts lingered. At a holiday gathering with Lucas's family, Adrian caught himself scanning for judgment. None came. The acceptance wrapped around him like a warm coat. Still, the ache of his own family's distance remained. One night he called his mother. She answered, voice soft. "I miss you, honey. Your father, he needs time." Adrian swallowed hard. "I'm not coming back the same person, Mom. But I'm still your son." The silence stretched. Then she whispered, "I know." It wasn't full reconciliation, but it was a beginning. Lucas watched from the doorway as Adrian ended the call, eyes shining with pride. "You did good." They celebrated with takeout on the balcony, city lights twinkling below. Adrian realized the proposal had not destroyed his life. It had stripped away the parts that were never truly his. The man emerging felt stronger, more authentic. Sacrifices had been made. Financial security, family approval, but the rewards were deeper connections and a love no longer hidden. Lucas's hand found his across the table. 9 years was long enough, Adrian said quietly. Lucas smiled. The next 9 will be better. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but bright, like the Chicago skyline at dusk. Spring arrived with new growth mirroring the changes in their lives. Adrian stood on the rooftop of Lucas's art center during its soft opening, watching families and young artists mingle below. The building he had helped redesign stood proud, a symbol of second chances. Lucas moved through the crowd, shaking hands, his smile the same one that had captivated Adrian in college. Their relationship had settled into something steady and open. No more secrets, no more pretending. Adrian's sister brought their mother to the event, a quiet step forward. His father stayed home, but the absence felt less like rejection and more like unfinished business they would address when ready. Sarah had moved on too, sending a card wishing them well. The gesture healed something Adrian hadn't known was still raw. As the sun set over the city, Lucas joined him on the rooftop, 2 glasses of sparkling water in hand. "Remember the garden?" he asked softly. Adrian laughed. Hard to forget. They stood side by side, shoulders brushing, the wind carrying laughter from below. 9 years of hidden love had led to this moment of public joy. Adrian turned to Lucas, the man who had risked everything with one bold proposal. "Thank you for not letting me settle." Lucas's eyes held the same depth as that wedding day. "Thank you for choosing us." They kissed openly, no fear, just the simple truth of 2 men who had finally found their way home. The journey had been painful, confrontations, tears, sacrifices, but every step had forged them stronger. Adrian looked out at the skyline he once designed for others and realized he was now designing a life for himself. The city lights flickered on one by one, each a small promise of possibility. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. True or false? Is confessing hidden love on someone else's wedding day an act of courage or ultimate betrayal?